Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Sosa versus Carabajal fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do need a like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Sosa is 16-2 with 9 KOs, and Carabajal is 25-3-1 with 17 KOs. This fight's for the IBO World Featherweight title. Sosa's last fight was a win via KO in round 10 versus Dickens, and Carabajal's last fight was a win via TKO in round 1 versus Reyes. Sosa is 5'5.5", and Carabajal is 5'10". This is in Carabajal's home country of America. Sosa's losses have come versus Carter in 2022 and Pedrosa in 2022. Carabajal's losses have come versus Cruz in 2022, Quintero in 2015, and Lopez in 2013. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I said, it's for the IBO title. Obviously, not a huge belt, but nonetheless, I thought I would come on here and talk about it mainly because I spoke about the Dickens versus Sosa fight, which was obviously the last fight, and it ended in such emphatic fashion. Obviously, Dickens getting knocked out badly, and obviously that was very shocking. Nobody thought that would happen, and Sosa, it was quite a cagey fight throughout most of it. I mean, Dickens was probably doing the best of the back foot work, but Sosa was looking good at times with his combinations. I think I'm going to speak about a few things that perhaps I thought he was doing wrong to an extent, but nonetheless, he managed to get that very surprising knockout. It clearly meant loads to him, which I don't blame him because it was such a huge elevation for him. It's really actually given him a platform to get fights like this and made a little bit of a name for himself. And obviously, Dickens, that's kind of to an extent, maybe not ended his career because of course he can rebuild, and I think he's fought since then or he's going to fight. But nonetheless, Sosa has now been given this opportunity, now being a technically a world champion. Like it was very impressive, and the way it happened, of course, brought eyes to that fight, which perhaps wasn't really being talked about that much. And yeah, so it was emphatic. That's, I mean, of course, given him confidence, I'm sure, as well. And as he isn't really too old, and he hasn't really had too many huge knockouts like that, it's definitely given him that confidence boost, which I'm sure is only realistically going to benefit him. And obviously, Carabajal also coming off a stoppage in the first round, but to be honest, I can't seem to find footage of the last two fights of his. He's obviously coming off the loss versus Cruz, which of course there's nothing really is bad about losing to a former freeweight world champion, but since then he went and rebuilt back in Mexico, I believe, and or back home for him, which is America. So he's gone away and rebuilt, and he's gotten two knockouts, and now he's gotten back in a position for a world title fight. And he seemed to struggle in any kind of step up he's had, being realistically only the Cruz fight. I think before that he wasn't really fighting anybody of too much note. The other two losses were much earlier on in his career, his debut and like one of his first six rounders or something like that. And since then he did rebuild, and he rebuilt from then, and then managed to get to that world kind of level where he fought Cruz, and Cruz was coming off the loss versus Davis, I believe, and hasn't fought since that Carabajal win, I believe. But nonetheless, he still looked very good. Obviously, he wasn't really being too active before that fight, and I think he did just show his experience and showed his class, and I think Carabajal really respected him, perhaps a bit too much, but at the same time, Cruz is an amazing fighter, so I don't really blame him. But it'd be interesting to see how he deals with somebody like Sosa, who is quite explosive, a little bit awkward at times to deal with, and Carabajal, he has got a good jab, and with the height advantage which he's used to having, he should be able to maintain a distance and keep Sosa at a range, but we'll be able to interesting to see if he can do that or not. To speak about them both individually as fighters, like I say, Sosa coming off that huge victory, only going to give him that momentum, that confidence, which I'm sure is going to help him. He's a pressure type fighter with good timing. I mean, he's proved that timing now, especially, and he's got a nice high guard, similar to that of Carabajal in that aspect. He's got a nice straight right hand, which if he can find his range and start pumping through it, is relatively nice. It's just when he was fighting Dickens, he was finding success with that straight right, but that's because he could find the range and close the distance with it. I think it's going to be difficult to do that with Carabajal. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think Carabajal is too amazing at maintaining the distance, but yeah, at the same time, we will have to wait and see. He will throw in bunches a lot of the time. He brings the fight, he brings the pressure. Sometimes you speak about bringing the fight to a journeyman type opponent, but genuinely, when you do go to the definition of bringing the fight, I think Sosa definitely does that. He is very eager to be in a good fight, and with the pressure that he brings as well, I think he definitely does bring the fight. Obviously, I think he's confident, he's tough, he's got relatively awkward movements. Sometimes he'll just kind of rush in out of nowhere. He's quite explosive to an extent, but he hasn't got the best ways of finding openings, I don't think. I think he can just rush in a little bit too eager at times, but he's got that eager type movement, which is awkward to deal with at points. He's got fast hands. He can be patient when he wants to be as well. He finds gaps relatively well. I think he improves throughout fights, and he's proven now that he possesses power, and that power wasn't really anything I believe that was shown throughout the fight, other than that that ending Dickens punch. And obviously, there's talks about Dickens' chin and things like that, and him being past his peak and everything like that. So and maybe Sosa just had very good time with it. But I think it was hit with a little bit of power, and he has that capability now. I hope he's not going into it thinking he's a one punch knockout artist, because I don't believe he is. But I think he does possess a bit of power. Negatives about him, I think like I said, that eagerness, awkward movements can make him a bit bouncy on his feet at points, which means he's not really setting his feet at the best of times. He reacts to feints. I think he does respect his opponents and is afraid of what they could fire. He has a bit of a lack of jab. I think that's also means why he can be quite reckless at coming in, and I don't think his balance is the best. He can be timed. I mean, he did get dropped versus Dickens in the first round because I think he was overly eager. I think he was reckless coming in, and his balance didn't look the best, and he was timed. He can be kept at a distance the majority of the time, can be outworked, similar to that of Carabajal. I think he can be outworked as well. He comes in at straight lines a lot of the time. I think finding his range can be a little bit of a problem. Sosa's accuracy isn't always amazing. Against straight shots, I think he can struggle because his head just kind of does get pumped back a lot of the time from that, and that's where Dickens was having a lot of success. And I think he can headhunt a little bit at times, Sosa, which is something that Carabajal definitely doesn't do. To speak more about Carabajal, I think he closes the distance quite well for a big guy. He does get in close quite well when he wants to, and he is able to work in closer or at mid range. He changes levels nicely. I think his body work is excellent, and probably one of his, if not his best attribute, is body work. He's got a relatively good jab. I think he could use it a bit more and be a bit more consistent with it, but it is a nice jab when he uses it, and I think it is strong enough to keep somebody at a range. He doubles up in his punches relatively nicely. He's got a nice high guard. I think he's definitely open to the body though, but he has got a tight guard and it's high. He's got a good chin. He has powerful digging hooks, and he'll distribute them to the head, to the body, perhaps a little bit predictable with them at times because they are the main punches that he throws, but they are seemingly powerful and they do seem to dig in. He responds to a lot of shots that he gets caught with, which is nice. I don't think his output is anything too crazy. I think it can be not amazing, his output, but he does seem to respond. He's got solid footwork, he's comfortable on the back foot, and Sosa perhaps might put him on the back foot, and Carabajal, I think, will be able to deal with that relatively well. It'll be interesting to see if he wants to keep Sosa at a distance, or if he's willing to get in close and try and fire with him, because I think in close, Carabajal could also be better than Sosa, in my opinion. Negatives about him, I think he accepts the back foot position, and Sosa could loop in some big shots just from the back foot position. He stands upright, like I say, he's a big target to be hit. He can be drawn into a fight. He doesn't really use his range as well as I think he can do. His head can quite often be on the line, so he can definitely get caught with shots. He's not really as physical, in my opinion, as what Sosa can be. He's open to the body, sits on the ropes a bit too long, can be beaten to the punch, so Sosa, when he's punching in bunches, can beat him to the punch. I don't think any of them have got a crazy high output, but I think Sosa does throw more. He he struggled to deal with the step up last time, so this is a step up again for him, so he might struggle to deal with that. He can be a little bit predictable, like I said. He can be outpaced, and like I said, I think he does have a low output. Sosa is the favourite for this fight. I think that Carabajal will win via unanimous decision. The only real reason why I said Sosa is the favourite for this fight, I don't really think there's any kind of odds or anything been announced on the fight because it isn't really a huge fight and it's on a Sunday night as well. And yeah, I don't think it's not really been made into a huge event. But Yeah, the only reason why I said Sosa is just because he is coming off that really big victory, and Carabajal's never really won at a top level. But when you think stylistic wise, you could argue that perhaps this fight would suit Carabajal a bit better. I think, like I said, I think he fights better on the in close than that of Sosa. I think it's a lot less messy of the work, and if he can get to the body, it'd be nice. I think Sosa, if he starts going to the body, it'd be nice because as the smaller guy, what Cruz did very well was go to the body as well because when you are a smaller guy going against such a tall guy, your head is pretty much in line with his body, and if they're high guard, then the body's definitely going to be open and it's right in front of you, so you definitely have to go to it. And be interested to see if Sosa does, but yeah, I think actual boxing ability wise, the sharpness of the punches and the ability that Carabajal holds, I think he can dig out into unanimous decision victory. I don't think his chin is any sort of a problem or anything like that. And yeah, I think he's tough and he's going to be too much for Sosa, in my opinion, and then be able to get the win that way. And it'd be interesting to see where he goes next. I put down a few options, but to be completely honest, he could fight anybody. I'm not too sure with the IBO. When you win that IBO title, obviously it's not a major one, so you don't really get into too huge of rankings or anything like that. I think he'll be into one of the ranking bodies just because Sosa's in one of them at the moment, and fighters will want to fight for the IBO belt, but they'll be at a lower position than that of Carabajal, probably rankings wise. So something like a Collins could be given as an option because Queensberry could just want to get a world title and say that Collins is a world champion. You never know. They did it for um, Liam Davis, so you never know. They could want to do it for Collins as well. Kolmatov obviously just about lost versus Ford, but was looking very good throughout that fight, and that could be a really good fight for him. Or Kameda is another guy who's fought multiple times for world championships. That could be a good fight as well. So yeah, but nonetheless, I think there is just a lot of options available. Just be interesting to see who he can go on to fight. I don't necessarily know if he ever could get to a world level, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.